Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I am Kylie Munnich, CEO of Screen Queensland, and thank you for joining us for this very special webinar in what is a very special week in the calendar. It is, of course, NAIDOC week in Australia, and I would like to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, whether on this call or wherever you find yourself, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. This is an important time in the calendar in Australia because it pays respect to, acknowledges our First Nations peoples and their great history of storytelling, which is so important to us at Screen Queensland. And so I'm very delighted to be joined this morning by adopted Queenslander Chantelle Murray. Chantal began her career as a performer, but found her true passion behind the camera as a writer and director. Chantal's passion for storytelling and unique artistic perspective has earned her credits on a range of projects. Her debut directing piece, My Name Is Mudju, which was supported by Screen Queensland, was released in 2020, and it screened at the Bronze Film Festival, the Melbourne International Film Festival, CinefestOZ, and toured with Flickerfest nationwide, which is very impressive. And I know that you won Best Short Film at the Rotorua Indigenous Film Festival. Amazing. Then her second film, Shed, was in 2019, which was supported by Screen Australia, ABC and Screen Queensland. And that opened at the Sydney Film Festival last year and screened at WINDA and CinefestOZ film festivals. Well, Chantal has been very busy, very busy in the past few years. She's even been attached to such huge international productions as Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic, Gone Baby Gone, Bloody Hell, Tidelands, and most recently, Thor, Love and Thunder, shadowing Taika Waititi. So we're thrilled that she could make the time to join us because she's a writer, director, producer, creator, storyteller, and all-round deadly woman. So Chantelle, thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much, Kylie. That sounds so much better than what I am.
It's not true. It sounds better than what you are. It's true that it is what you are. And we're so grateful that you've chosen to work in Queensland and to bring that real generosity of spirit that I know you have around creativity and storytelling and sharing. Let's go back a little bit because you are a proud Bardi woman and storyteller. I'd love to know how those two aspects of your identity connect.
So yeah, I'm a Bardi and Bunyal woman, and how my storytelling connects. I mean, it's inbuilt in all of us First Nations people. It's how we pass on knowledge. As you know, it's not a written language. We pass on knowledge through song, dance, storytelling, and art. And that's how we're able to prep and sustain for our next generation. And I think my storytelling, I guess it comes from seeing what I've always felt on the screen. I didn't see enough of my community represented from my perspective of how I saw my women around me, and the men around me, and us projected in stereotypical ways, whereas I grew up with such strong leaders around me and beautiful, creative, wild, strong souls, and I really wanted that reflected on the screen, even in horrible, dire situations, just to find that little bit of magic and hope in whatever situation that we're put in. And I think the resilience and push that has come from my community is you know, something I am always in awe of, and I'm always just trying to capture that. I'm not sure if I answered that question properly.
Well, it makes me think, was creativity really encouraged in you from your community, from your family, from a very young age?
Yeah, I think one thing I always think about for my mom is I'm just so grateful that she's always had you know, unconditional belief in my madness. I think we're all a little bit mad, especially in my family, and I think you know, I was never encouraged or forced or expected to finish or do a university degree or do something that I didn't like. And if I didn't like a position that I was doing or a job that I was doing, Mum would just tell me to quit. If it's taking away from my Leon, my soul, or my spirit, then it's not where I'm supposed to be. So I always learned to just get up and start again. and not to follow through, which I think was what a really interesting lesson that I got to learn, because I only followed through on the things that I truly believed in, and that's what she kept pushing me to go towards. Whereas if I didn't believe in something, but because it might have fit into the norm, she never expected me or wanted me to do that. If she saw me upset, she wanted me to just leave it and start again. So creativity was always, and my mum, she's a primary school teacher and principal and amazing bushwoman, and she's just one of the most exciting, fun people to be around. So it's like playing with a kid constantly. She's a toddler, and it's always exciting and wonderful. The world, the way that she looks at it is I don't know, definitely how it shaped me as a person.
When I introduced you just then, I gave a lot of labels to you, and I wonder how you do actually describe yourself.
Oh.
Is there one thing that you distill it down to, or is it storyteller? Is it, writer, producer, filmmaker? Where do you see yourself in that pantheon?
I've always seen myself as well, because my Rai, or my spirit, is a dingo, and I always just see myself as a free spirit. I just land, which I've spoken to you about before. I land wherever I'm supposed to be. That's the reason why wherever I'm supposed to be, that's where I'm going to be. I don't see myself as a label or a writer or a director or a producer or an artist. I just see myself as I am wherever I'm supposed to be in that moment, and hopefully it's the right place.
That's a very beautiful acceptance about life, then, that you are doing what you need to be doing at the time you need to be doing it. That's a wonderful way to be.
Well, thank you. I hope. I hope it's
about
right.
Your directorial debut, which Screen Queensland supported, and as I mentioned earlier, won the best short film at the Rotorua Indigenous Film Festival. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to make that project.
So My Name Is Mudju is based off events and things like that have happened, not only to my grandmother, but also a whole generation of people, as well as it's still kind of happening now, the stolen generation within our people. And I just really wanted to highlight the resilience of the women as well as the men, things like that. But even though these children were taken, some were able to go home and some were able to hold on to their culture. I'm very grateful that my nana was able to still speak to her mother and exchange culture and things like that, whether through a fence or whether she ran away to go see her mother or her father. And she was able to go back to country, which is, still our country today, which I'm very grateful for. I mean, it's very close story to my heart.
That's such a personal story. Does that take a toll on you as a storyteller and a creator, or does that really energize and enrich you?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think it doesn't take a toll because that's something that I was screaming to tell, because I know Philip Noyce. I've known him since I was 10 years old, actually. And I love Road Proof Fence, but I always felt, what about the kids that didn't get home? What about the ones that got stuck in the orphanage? And I always wanted to tell, a snippet of that story, which I was very grateful to Screen Queensland give me that opportunity. And then, so that was really cathartic. And then I wanted to tell a different story. And I think as a storyteller, you always evolve, or you want to find the next piece that you're really passionate about.
You mentioned Philip Noyce there and Rabbit Proof Fence, which is, of course, a seminal film in Australian storytelling and a critical piece of cinema and history. Will you share your connection to that film?
Yeah, so Philip, so he came up to Broome and I auditioned. So it was between me and my cousin, Evelyn Sampi, and he said to me, "You're too white and you're too pretty." He still tells that story today. But I did say to him, I really want to get into filmmaking. And he said, well, hit me up when you get older. And then I did. And then I went and got mentored by him over in the US for a couple months then. It was one of the best experiences of my life to work on a massive budget film, and to see this Aussie, icon director in charge of everyone, and see how easy it was for him, because it's second nature. It's his identity. And also I don't know, the words of wisdom that he imparted on me. I was just so grateful, and I still am, of every mentor that's walked before me and also taken me under their wing. I'm very grateful.
Well, you've had some big experiences recently, as I mentioned in the introduction there, with Baz Luhrmann and his Elvis biopic, which was shot at Village Roadshow Studios on the Gold Coast. Most recently, Thor, Love and Thunder, filmed down in Sydney, and again helmed by Taika Waititi. Can you perhaps reveal even just a little bit about what those opportunities meant to you? I'm sure we'd all love to get the inside scoop on both those films, because we're all waiting patiently to see them. But what was it like, working with Baz on set, and then maybe also Taika? I'd love to hear some of your experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Baz Luhrmann, it's exactly how you would picture Baz Luhrmann. It is wonderful, grandiose. He is extremely professional. He is an auteur. He knows exactly what he wants. And he's such a sweet, humble human at the same time. He always had, a couple of minutes here and there to say hello and talk about Aboriginal mob. Like, he's very connected himself. He spent a lot of time with First Nations. And it was beautiful to watch. I can't say much, obviously, but like, I remember we were shooting this one shot over and over and over and over and over and over and over again for hours, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I thought that's in the bag, like, we've got it. And then I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. That's a Baz Luhrmann shot, of course. That's a Baz Luhrmann shot. Like, I get it. Like, when you watch a Baz Luhrmann movie, you understand his shots. Like, I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's just this understanding, seeing the other side on the ground, like his brain. It was one of the most wonderful things to experience, and he was fantastic, and it was one of the coolest experiences. I mean, I've had heaps, and that was definitely one of the coolest experiences. And I think a lesson that I took away from Baz and his team and everyone there is just trust yourself. Everyone is unique, which I know already, but like, really learning to trust myself and my vision and my version of storytelling. And because, I'm never going to make a Baz Luhrmann film. Kylie, you're never going to make a Chantelle Murray film. We're all, we could all be given the same script, and they're all going to be completely different. And I think that's the beauty of filmmaking, as well as any form of art, is we're all going to interpret it differently. And with Taika, it was so cool. I mean, Taika's rock and roll to me. To me, he's Prince of our First Nations world, I think, as well as the world. He is everything, and like, I'm so grateful for that experience, because he didn't treat me as someone separate or just there. Not that anyone else did either, but he literally pulled up the chair and made sure I was sitting next to him on set. And at one point, he I can't remember, first time I got to the tent, and he was like, we were talking, he was like, hello, blah, 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 blah. And I was just obviously so ashamed. I was just so shy. And then outside of the tent was Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth. And I was like, oh my God, it's Natalie Portman. Oh my God, it's Chris Hemsworth. And Taika like saw me, and he's like, hey, Natalie, Chris, come in the tent. And I was like, oh fucking God, sorry. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm just looking at the ground, and I'm just sitting in front of me. Anyway, that was like, it was really cool. And also to see the sets. It's phenomenal. And I think the one thing I took away from all of those experiences is they're just human, just like me and you. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that we've got amazing people in this world that give us the opportunity to mentor. And I look forward to becoming someone in that position that I can pay it forward to, because I know how much those experiences mean to me.
Yeah,
So
you meant to do that. Well, look,
yeah,
I think both those films show you what you can do with tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
absolutely.
But at their heart, they are great stories, and I think everyone who writes a film or a TV series, or who produces, creates, directs it, just wants to get to a great story. And I think that's really it's what I know of you. That's really part of who you are. I know you're particularly interested in Aboriginal history and the role of Indigenous women as storytellers. So how does that inspire or inform your work and about what you want to do and what you want to say?
I mean, everything for me is, you know, all of my leads are female, except for one that I'm doing coming up. But I think female storytelling is, you know, it's so important. It's the yin and the yang. There's the male storytelling and the female, and you know, I think they're both equally important. And yeah, it means everything to me is to come from a female perspective, and also to have that that real nurturing empathy touch. I mean, not that men don't have that at all. I'm just saying, for this is what informs me, is I really love to come from a place of you know, the heart and the empathy and the nurturing, as well as, you know, that strength and resilience that women across the globe go through. Like, we do just get up and get on with it. I think as much as like horrendous things happen to us or around us, we have to get up and keep going. We are part of the glue within tribes or within communities, across every community.
Something I know about you is how much you want to be inclusive in your storytelling, and what you're just describing there about just generally pain and struggle for women, for First Nations people. How did you arrive at a place where you want your storytelling to be so inclusive, given the history in Australia of First Nations people, given where we are in history? How is it that inclusivity became so important to you in what your work is?
I just think that just comes from a place of authenticity. I think I strive for authenticity. I mean, I think we can all watch something today and we're like, oh, that's just it. Now everything's turned into a stereotype, because it's not coming from a place of authenticity. Because if we aren't coming from a multicultural layered background, then it's just a one-sided voice or view. And we can't, and I think in today's world, everything's quite unforgiving, because we're so overexposed in the media and all that type of stuff. Is we are wanting more authentic voices, where it comes from children content all the way up to every type of content, even in gaming. I mean, I think authenticity is something I 100% strive for. I mean, and it's something that makes sense to me. I don't know how to explain.
Well, I think a bit of what we're talking about is a diversity of voices as well, about how we've seen the same story over and over. And I do think we're at a tipping point where everyone is ready for more stories, more voices, more ideas, because we just can't keep repeating, whether it's on television, streaming, you know, film or games, what has always been the standard or the norm. I think now, as you say, authentic stories are really critical. It probably leads me on to, what are you working on now? Because I know you are very busy, and I know you've got your finger in lots of pies. What are some of the things that are exciting you at the moment that you're putting your time to?
So we are doing a story about a thylacine. It's animation, children's animation, and it's a feature film, which I'm really excited to do with Like a Photon and Eclectic Films. So we're in development stage of that, and just getting the writing out. And honestly, it's so exciting, because it's an Australian animal, and it's coming, you know, from an authentic background, and you know, obviously I'm naturally a First Nations person, so I'm coming from my background, but it's not a First Nations film because it's about a children's story about a thylacine, so that's really exciting. And animation's such a fun world to get into. Because
Really
I just
into animation at the moment, aren't you? Because there's
oh,
another project as well.
yeah, so we've got like 3, and then I just finished the short Jali, which is really exciting. So I think nothing's official, so I can't say much about where and what it's been picked up with, but there's some really amazing things happening with Jali. I mean, we have such a cool marketing team behind us.
Are you able to say a little bit about what the story of Jali is without giving too much away? Because it's so fantastic.
So Jali's a little girl from the outback, and she can make something out of nothing. And yeah, she's just a genius engineer, and she dreams of one day of making it to space. And that's what I can say. But she's really fun and exciting. So that one we hopefully will be, well, I know hopefully we will be making into a feature as well. And then I've also got a TV series which we're working on about the completely opposite end of the spectrum. One of Australia's most notorious Australian female killer. I won't say too much, but yeah, she's really exciting to write about.
What has attracted, like that's 3 really different projects, 2 kids animators project and one which is a true crime story.
Yep.
They would seem quite different on the face of it. So is there a thread that connects your work that you can identify?
Well, I think us as humans, we're complicated. I don't think there's one type of genre that I am. I think I know I love children's content, and I absolutely love true crime, and I love psychological thrillers. I love the twists and turns and things like that. And I think a lot of, I would say maybe just the groups I run in, but a lot of people that I run around with or chill with, my crew, we love the same things, and we love this type of stuff. I mean, I love a good, strong female drama too. I mean, I love a lot of things, but this is my passion at the moment.
Well, we can't wait to see those works on screen. I wonder what keeps driving you in this industry, because it's not easy. It's not easy. I always say it's not easy to be burdened with creativity and talent. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that to carry talent and to carry creativity and to get it out in the world is not easy. There are a lot of people watching this and a lot of people in the industry who don't get as far as they want and hit a lot of brick walls. So what has kept driving you, you know, when you hit a barrier, or, you know, what's been difficult for you to break through that you can offer as advice for someone at any stage of their career?
Yeah, I get that, and I understand that completely, because I mean, that was me for the first years of my life, is just getting that one first foot in the door. And I mean, even now I still get heaps of rejections, and that's okay, because in my head I have this weird unconditional belief in myself, blind belief and faith, because I know what I want to see on the screen, and I'm one of my biggest fans, and I don't mean this in a up myself way. I genuinely, this is what I want to see, and if I saw this, I know I would watch the heck out of it. And that's what is part of my drive, and I understand that really hard stepping stones to get there, and the rejections. And I think the one thing I can say to people is you're gonna keep getting rejections. It never gets easier. I mean, people up the top get rejected. People with Oscars get rejected. People take years. It honestly, having conversations with people who are the top people in the industry will get rejected. Will, you know, not right now, or get shelved, and just move on. It's an evolving industry, and it's just seeing whatever works with the people at the time, and just having that faith and belief of pushing through. I mean, and I think with creativity and things like that, it's evolving. If it's a part of you, it's a part of you. You're going to continuously try or find something, or write something down, or find an idea, or find something's not working, or find, I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah,
that suggests a drive. Really, you do need a drive, because you can have a passion about something.
Yeah.
And we're all very passionate about things. But it sounds like you really have to have, well, you said it earlier, resilience. You've got to have resilience to keep going if it's what you want to commit to.
Exactly. I mean, I think one thing I always think is, what is my end result out of this? Am I willing to put in 5 years, 5 to 10 years? In my head, that's always my first question is, oh, this is a great idea in my head, but am I willing to give up 5 to 10 years of my life? And am I able to convince other people to give up 5 to 10 years of their lives? Because if I'm doing a feature, that's how long they're in your lives for.
Yeah.
More than your even family sometimes. So I have to ask myself, is that worth asking people to do? Or is, you know what I mean? Like that's that drive, and it's a long-term thing. And this industry, it's not riches, and you do get to meet some really cool people. And I mean, that's lucky and things like that. But I mean, there's only very few people that are sitting up the top quite happy and wealthy and things like that. It is a drive. You've got to get up and work every day, just like you're doing a 9-to-5 job, and there is some payoffs, but there's a lot of lulls too. And it's just having that resilience and excitement for it, still waking up excited, because you do have to show up. Yeah. Look, I've got this great idea and I really love it. Do you want to invest 10 years of my life and your life with me? Because some people don't, and that's okay.
You know, it's a really interesting time when you think about the global streaming platforms, about telling Australian stories, and particularly about telling First Nations stories, because there is now, it seems to me, an appetite for stories wherever they come from. Do you think we've got a real opportunity to really promote and back and support First Nation stories now more than ever?
Yeah, I mean, we know this. We've known this. I think First Nations filmmakers have known this for years. We clean up at the box offices globally. We always have. At the festivals, all of that type of stuff. And then especially when it comes from a First Nations perspective, the people in the creative positions, the writers, directors, and producers and things like that. I mean, I don't really need to say that. It's written in stone. And I think this now is that opportunity for the streaming sites and things like that. I mean, yeah, of course, give us more opportunities. I mean, I'm all for it.
No, I'm sure you would be, if I knew the answer to that one before I asked it. Well, look, it is NAIDOC week in Australia, as I said, beginning a very important time in the calendar, and a real moment to stop and acknowledge and pay respect. And the theme of this year's NAIDOC week is Heal Country. So I'm interested to know, what does that mean to you, and where does storytelling take a place in that, particularly in relation to healing trauma, acknowledging trauma, past injustices? What does Heal Country mean for you?
I think we got on this discussion the other day, which was really cool. I mean, Heal Country to me is, it means protection and, places of practice, and just allowing us to help be in the room to create policy around protection. And I think I was talking to my cousin about this, and there's a lot of misconception about First Nations people, and how we don't want progress and we just want everything left untouched. And that's really not true. Is we want to be in the room to be able to create a place of protection in order to pass on for the next generation, because as we are custodians, Heal Country means to heal ourselves, because our country is us. I am that, and that is me. I identify as my land, and my land identifies as me, because without me, I can't protect it. And without my country, I will be sick. I won't be able to heal myself, my spirit. I won't be able to go back to practice, to pass on knowledge, to pass on art, to breathe, and to hunt on my country and things like that. This year's NAIDOC is quite open with the heal country, but for me, it means to heal myself and to help protect for the next generation and to protect the land, so we're able to practice to pass on. And as like the original conservationists, I guess, around the globe, it's necessary more than ever. I mean, in the climate that we're living in, no pun intended. I think the world needs healing right now.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. And as we all know, storytelling is absolutely central to the 65,000 plus year continuous culture that we have in Australia with our First Nations people. So how is storytelling passed through just your own family? You mentioned earlier about the support from your mum for your creativity, but it was really imbued in you from a very young age.
Yeah, I think listening to my mum tell stories, my grandmother tell stories, my mum telling stories, my grandfathers, my uncles, and listening to them around the campfire was, I know it sounds stereotypical, but truly sitting out in bush around the campfire on my country, listening to those stories, listening to the traumas, as well as the triumphs, as well as the traditional, as well as the just the funny stories, the scary stories, all that type of stuff. My whole life, I just like googly-eyed and all of my ears open, listening. I just absorbed. I love listening to the stories, and I mean, I still love it. I still love going out to country and listening to my mob tell me their stories, because I don't know which story I'm going to imprint on and then want to pass on to my next generation. I don't know. And that's another thing I find really interesting as storytellers, is which is the ones that I really identify with, or that why is that so interesting to me? And like, I analyze that sometimes and I'll rip apart and like, why did that story mean so much to me? I mean, I loved listening to my grandmother's story, my nana's story about when she was stolen. I loved listening. I always so intrigued about what happened in the orphanage. How did she see her mum? How did she learn her culture? What happened to them? What happened to them in the orphanage? All that type of stuff. I don't know why it was so interesting to me, and that's how Mudju was made. I love listening to the secret stories that were hushed. Oh, don't go into that area, which shed was made from, because that's where scary things happen to girls over there. And I was just like, well, what happened in that shed? What happened to that generation? What happened to those stories that are hushed away in our, historical stories that are hushed because Australia doesn't want to hear it? I was like, well, they're the stories I'm really interested in because it's history. It's cool. It's not cool. It's horrible, but I'm just interested.
Were you, it sounds like you were really driven by curiosity then, even though some of those stories you could very well have been afraid of, but did your curiosity drive that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm still curious today. I like going down the rabbit hole. I like hearing more. I want to hear more. I want to chase facts. And did they hear it from someone's mouth, or did they assume? And even if it's assumed, why was it assumed? All that type of stuff. I mean, I'm always curious. I think you have to have a deep curiosity to be a creative person. Otherwise, it'd be stagnant. I mean, I never want to know what I'm doing. I really enjoy figuring it out.
What do you mean you never want to know what you're doing? You want it to be revealed to you, or you?
I love figuring it out. I never want to be stagnant. I never want to feel like I know everything about what I'm doing. I never want to, feel, because then it's just done. It's boring. I've done that story. Then if I made another Mudju, then I'm making another Mudju. I've done that story. I know what I'm doing. Whereas I really want to discover along the way of the journey of making my next story. It's like, well, what about this? What is happening within that? What facts can we bring out, or what can we create in our imaginations? All that type of stuff.
Those stories that you're describing over many years, with your mother, your grandmother, or other people in your mob, have you been busily writing lots of ideas for years, scribbling notes and collecting stories in a way? Or have you...
I just collected up here, which is something really bad about me. is I can't really, I'm terrible at, I mean, I'm good at storytelling, sit around a campfire, I mean, all that type of stuff. But when it comes to like putting it on paper,
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that. And that's okay. That's just who I am. But when I do get it out, I mean, you can see hopefully a good result on the screen. But I can describe it from my brain. That's the only way I can get it out, I think. I'm terrible. Oh God, how am I? Anyway, move on.
It's all percolating up in here, right?
It percolates. I don't have a book.
Yeah.
And that's the reason the funnest things is listening to mum and the aunties or everyone telling the stories, because they repeat the same stories and we'll be like, oh, tell that story there, that time you went running down the street, got out to one naked or whatever it is. And it's just like, tell that one again. Like, so we just keep reiterating in our heads, because then we can tell it to the next. And like, so my nieces and nephews and things like that, they listen to stories about what their nana used to get up to, my mum, and what she used to run amok. And they're like, oh, she's wild. And it's kind of inspires you, like, oh, that's crazy.
So it sounds like you've probably got a lot more stories and a lot more ideas that will come out in years to come. I mean, what fertile ground to be able to have as a basis for your storytelling. That's incredible. Yeah.
I hope so. But I think everyone has that. I think we don't reveal all of our cards. I think when they come out when they're ready, I hope. Well, I know mine do.
You know, filmmaking is a very technical business. I described before that it can be a very expensive business. It's a very technical business. Is there a part of the process that you really love, a technical discipline that actually you quite enjoy in the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, everything. I love it from start to finish. I love the writing process. I love that. And I love it all the way up to the editing process and layering the sounds and all of that type of stuff. I mean, it's amazing to get through, and scary and overwhelming and hard. But like, the best thing about filmmaking is it's a collaborative process. Every single person is a brilliant person in their own right and will bring something to the table I wouldn't even know to think of at all. I mean, one example is Mudju, the flowers, the native flowers. I'd written flowers or something like that, and Rihanna showed up with like all these different types of native flowers, and I was just like, this is so cool, this is so great that I don't have to think of everything. You don't.
So you're talking about the collaborative process there.
The collaborative process, yeah. And right. So getting back to the technical, I love sound. I think it's one of my favorite things.
Sorry, I spoke over you. What do you love?
Sound. Sound. 100%. I love sound. I love.
Really evident in Mudju, actually.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
Spare and sparse, but just so pinprick clear.
Yeah, it's something I love. I mean, I could tell a whole story just through sound. I just absolutely love that. And I think that comes from my fear of being a child in the bush. Sorry, let the dog in. My fear of being a child in the bush and like always just listening, waiting for the ngari to come out, or the Rai children to play with us. And you know, we used to go to sleep, all of us cousins, and like listen for something scary to come out. And like, I think that's part of my passion for sound, is like, we'll pick up on anything we'll pick up on anything to make a story out of something, to creep each other out.
What about colour? Because I noticed, particularly in Mudju, the flowers, the vivid pink flowers, and you describe, Rihanna, bringing different flowers to set. What does the colour palette mean to you in your filmmaking? Everything
as well. I think every part of the film means a lot. I mean, color. I'll think of the color palette pretty much as I'll watch the movie in my head a couple of heaps of times before I even write it, and then I'll be able to like blueprint it, and then from my brain, then I try get it out on paper and explain it to people around me, which is difficult sometimes. But yeah, I love color palette, because I think color is really important of what message you want to get across and how you're able to portray it properly. And I mean, I haven't had the chance to do my feature yet, but I will. But just the storytelling within that, because there's always a start, middle, end, within color and sound and all of that. And I think it's that layering and the depth that brings out some of the best storytelling.
I've been lucky enough to see a tiny bit of Jali. Maybe I shouldn't say
No,
that.
you're good.
But
You're allowed to.
it looks incredible, and in fact, so vivid, and the colours represented of Central Australia are incredibly special. So I'm sure when we all get to see that, people will just realise, even more of what you're talking about there. Listen, to go on to an even more serious subject, as part of NAIDOC Week, we did an interview with Queensland filmmaker Dean Gibson.
Yep.
He's made an incredible documentary called Incarceration Nation about Black deaths in custody, which will be airing on NITV next month, I believe. It's a film as a force for change, and it's a confronting piece of work. I'd be very interested in your view on storytelling as a force for change, particularly in the First Nations world.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. I think I haven't watched it yet, so I can't have an opinion on it, but obviously I know Dean's work and I think he's brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to watching this. And as a First Nations person, and we're the highest incarcerated people possibly in the globe, and I know in our youth, it is in the globe that I think it's like 100% youth in detention in the Northern Territory is Aboriginal or First Nations. Is disgusting. And using filmmaking as a force of change, I think it's one of the best things possibly. I'm getting choked up. I mean, it means so much to me to see strength in filmmakers for using filmmaking as a tool for change. I mean, some of my favorite documentaries and movies have changed people's opinions and lives and things like that. I mean, it means so much to me. I'm very passionate about filmmakers that have the cojones to go there.
Yeah.
And in all of our own way, unconsciously or consciously, we are activists, whether we're walking down the streets or whether I'm making a film like Mudju or Shed. We're telling a piece of history so it can enlighten or bring empathy. I think my form of storytelling is I'm an activist for empathy, and to bring in people. I don't want to scare people because obviously I've got a white father, I'm white as well. But I'm First Nations first and only First Nations, as well as I'm Malaysian. I'm only Malaysian, and I'm also from my white side too. But my force and my activism comes from empathy, and I want people to see that side of my people, as well as what Dean's doing. There's a million different forms of filmmaking and activism, and unconsciously or consciously we are doing it because it's just who we are within our identity.
First and foremost, NAIDOC is a week of celebration. I think that's such an important part of it. I'm so glad that NAIDOC Week will go ahead this year, albeit that some of our states in Australia are currently suffering under lockdown, but it hasn't stopped the celebration, the events. Screen Queensland has had some amazing First Nations filmmakers and storytellers. We have 3 short films with ABC this week as part of our authentic storytelling program. 3 short films that are on ABC iView that were made, 2 out of Cairns and 1 out of Townsville. So that's a little shout out for people to go and watch that on ABC. I'd love, if you don't mind, Chantelle, perhaps just a closing message, particularly around NAIDOC Week. What is the change that you want to see, and that the change that you bring?
I think I love NAIDOC Week. I always have, and it's an opportunity to bring in non-First Nations people into the fold and celebrate the culture of our beautiful First Nations Australians. And I think the one thing that I am very passionate about and I believe in is just re-indigenizing the world. creating this new identity, something I see in New Zealand, and what I would love to see more here of is, Australians identifying with the First Nations culture and embracing it as they're part of their identity, in indigenizing the world, because we have so much to offer. If we come together to heal and protect, then we're able to move forward and, become something amazing, I think.
It is a real gift, and it is a real privilege to live in this land that belongs to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and to be part of that culture and to be part of that storytelling tradition. Chantal, I'm so grateful for your time this morning. And
thank you for having me.
We cannot wait to see what you do next, because you are on a path to greatness, and we're thrilled that you choose to make work in Queensland. Screen Queensland is happy.
I got you, Queensland. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for having me, and thanks so much for supporting me. And I'm so excited to share the next journey with you guys, hand in hand. And let's happy NAIDOC week, everyone.
Indeed, happy NAIDOC week. Thank you everyone for joining us. Screen Queensland is always keen to hear from new storytellers wherever they are in the state, so we encourage you to get in touch with us. Just look what you could be. I think, Chantal, you're inspiring, and we wish you every great thing in the world, and can't wait to see what comes next. So thank you again.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks everyone, and have a great NAIDOC week.